All right, let's dive into this. Atomic habits. Sounds intriguing.
It's a good one, yeah.
So it seems like you sent us excerpts from James Clear's book, wanting to really get to the heart of it,
Oh,
those
yeah.
core principles, the actionable stuff, without having to wade through the whole thing.
That's it.
Think we can help you out with that.
I think we can, definitely. A lot of great stuff in there.
So the big idea right off the bat is tiny changes, big impact. Over time, of course.
Yeah.
Clear calls it the power of compounding. Not about massive overnight shifts or anything like that. It's about small, consistent improvements adding up. Does that resonate with you at all, like in your own life?
Oh, absolutely. It's like, when you invest small amounts regularly,
Yeah.
over time, that compound interest, right,
Yeah.
it grows, even if those contributions were small.
Perfect analogy, yeah. Clear talks about his own story, too. Recovering from a really bad baseball injury.
Oh, wow.
Back in high school. Broken nose, facial fractures, the works. He was sidelined for months, but instead of letting that get to him, he focused on tiny habits.
I see.
To regain strength, get back on track.
He did.
Ended up becoming an academic All-American, actually.
Really?
Imagine if he'd just dwelled on the injury,
Yeah.
How long recovery would take might have felt completely overwhelming.
For sure.
But breaking it down, those small daily habits, he made a huge transformation.
It's inspiring.
It is. And it makes you think, right? Our current results, they're a reflection of our past habits.
All right.
Clear calls them lagging measures. Sometimes we're impatient, want results now,
Uh-huh.
but change takes time. Consistent effort makes me wonder where we might be underestimating those small daily actions.
Oh, interesting.
What if instead of a whole life overhaul, we just made one small improvement each day?
Like what?
Like drinking more water,
Okay.
a quick walk at lunch, or even 5 minutes practicing a skill.
I like that.
That's where Clear's 4-stage framework comes in. For building habits.
All right. Tell me more.
Cue, craving, response, and reward. Breaks down the mechanics of how habits work.
Sounds comprehensive.
He uses some really interesting examples, like baby gulls.
Baby gulls.
They instinctively peck at that red spot on their mother's beak.
To get food.
Exactly. That red spot, that's the cue, triggers the pecking response.
Leading to the reward, the food.
Exactly. And he also talks about food scientists.
Okay.
They engineer processed food, right, with that irresistible combo, salt, sugar, fat,
Oh, yeah.
to hijack our cravings.
They know what they're doing.
They do. They know exactly how to trigger that desire for more. It's kind of wild how much is happening without us even realizing it, huh?
That's true.
We think we're in control, but
Yeah.
these cues, cravings, they're working behind the scenes.
Yeah, it's a bit unnerving when you think about it that way.
But get this. Understanding this whole loop, it can be really empowering.
How so?
We can consciously design our habits for success once we know how it works.
Makes sense. So if you wanted to cut back on, let's say, sugary drinks, just taking them out of your environment could help a lot.
Reduce the cue, reduce the craving, makes it easier to resist.
Exactly. So it's not just about willpower then.
Right. It's about that strategic design, supporting the habits we want.
I see.
Clear also talks about identity, playing a big role in lasting change.
Oh,
He argues real transformation, it's not just about checking off goals, it's about shifting our identity, wanting to lose weight versus becoming a healthy person,
interesting.
or wanting to write a book versus becoming a writer.
I get it. So it's about embodying that change.
Yes. He uses the example of the Polgar sisters, those chess prodigies.
Right. I've heard of them.
Their father raised them in a completely chess-centric environment.
Yeah.
Always playing, competing.
Wow.
It wasn't just a hobby. Chess was part of who they were. Think we can replicate that kind of intentional shaping in our own lives?
That's a good question. Their story definitely highlights the power of our environment for sure.
And the people we surround ourselves with.
Absolutely. Those things shape us.
So if we want those lasting habits, we need that supportive environment, right?
Makes sense.
People around us who embody the values we're going for. It's not just setting goals.
It's about aligning our actions with who we want to be.
Exactly. It's a powerful shift, don't you think?
It is. Big time.
Yeah, it really does make you think. But even with that vision, putting it into practice, that's where it gets tricky.
Yeah.
Especially building those day-to-day habits that support the bigger goals.
Absolutely. And I think a big thing people struggle with is that balance between challenge and skill.
Right.
Clear talks about the Goldilocks rule,
Okay.
Peak motivation happens when the task is challenging enough. Not too easy, not too hard.
Makes sense. Too easy, we get bored. Too hard, we get frustrated and quit.
Right. It's that sweet spot. He actually uses weightlifting as an example.
Oh, interesting.
One of the coaches he interviewed said those top athletes, they can handle the boredom of training.
The repetition, the discipline.
Exactly. It's funny, isn't it? We think of mastery as these big moments, breakthroughs, flashes of brilliance. But so much of it is those everyday actions.
Done consistently.
Yes. A musician practicing scales. An athlete perfecting their form. Not always the most exciting stuff.
But it builds that foundation.
For sure. And I think that applies everywhere, don't you? Learning a language, starting a business, even relationships.
It's those small steps done consistently.
Yeah. And that's where Clear's 2-minute rule comes in.
2-minute rule.
It's about breaking those big, scary tasks down into something you can do in 2 minutes or less.
Almost seems too simple.
Right. But the point is to overcome that initial resistance. We all feel it when starting something new.
Like that saying, a journey of 1,000 miles.
It begins with a single step.
Yeah.
You get it.
Yeah.
Once you take that first step, it's easier to keep going.
So instead of the whole workout, just put your shoes on.
Exactly. Instead of the whole chapter, write one sentence. It's tricking your brain into starting.
Then the momentum takes over. You end up doing way more than you thought you would.
Right. It's about showing up consistently, creating that positive feedback loop, which, speaking of positive feedback, clearly really emphasizes making habits satisfying. Our brains, they love instant gratification.
So if we want to stick to something, especially long-term things.
Got to make them enjoyable now. He has this great example, a hand-washing campaign in Pakistan.
Okay.
They want to promote hand washing. So they made it a more pleasurable experience, introduced this fancy soap, Safeguard.
Oh, interesting.
It was seen as better, more enjoyable than regular soap.
So they connected hand washing with a positive feeling.
Exactly. Hand washing rates went way up. Disease spread went down. It shows you finding ways to make habits appealing, it makes difference.
It's not forcing yourself to do something you hate.
No, it's finding that alignment with what you naturally enjoy.
Love that. Making habits work for you. Clear also mentions habit tracking, right? To see that progress, reinforce it.
Oh, absolutely. Visualizing that consistency, it's powerful stuff.
Like those chains of X's on a calendar.
Yeah. Reminds you of your commitment, the progress you're making. Helps you see patterns too, places to adjust.
Speaking of adjusting, Clear talks about accountability. Those habit contracts.
Yes. Adding that extra layer of commitment.
We talked about Brian Harris earlier. Used a habit contract to lose weight.
Right. He had those specific targets for exercise and diet. If he missed them, consequences.
Financial penalties, even that Alabama hat thing.
Ouch. Yeah. It's a bit extreme. But the point is, those immediate costs, they make you less likely to slip up.
It's like external pressure supporting your internal motivation.
Exactly. Though for most people, I think an accountability partner is better, more sustainable.
Someone to support you, keep you on track.
Yes. It can be a game changer having that ally in your corner. Provides community shared commitment.
That outside perspective, like a teammate.
Yeah, exactly. And speaking of the right team, Clear also talks about playing to your strengths.
Okay.
He says to think of habits as a game.
Yeah.
You got to find the game where the odds are in your favor.
Where you have a natural advantage.
Yes. What energizes you? What are you naturally good at? What skills come easily?
Finding those areas where you get into that flow state. Time flies by.
You got it.
Makes you think about what you're naturally drawn to.
Yeah.
But let's be real, even when you've got all that figured out, set yourself up for success. There are going to be times you trip up.
Oh, for sure.
It's part of the process.
It is. Building better habits, it's not about being perfect.
Right.
It's about progress. And progress isn't always a straight line.
So true. Clear emphasizes reflection and refining what you're doing.
Absolutely.
Taking a step back, see what's working, what's not.
And adjust as you go.
He compares it to those Japanese companies, the ones obsessed with constant improvement.
Oh yeah, always getting better.
Eliminating waste. Finding those better ways to do things. It's a growth mindset,
For sure.
Always room for improvement.
It's not about beating yourself up when you mess up.
Right.
It's about learning from it. Using that to refine your approach.
So using those mistakes to your advantage.
Yeah. Exactly. Clear even suggests scheduling time for reflection.
Really?
Yeah. Could be weekly, monthly, even quarterly. Like a check-in.
Like a meeting with yourself about your habits.
Exactly.
Yeah.
How are things going? How can you optimize them?
I like that. So it's not just thinking back, it's using those thoughts to inform what you do next.
Yeah. Right.
You're basically your own coach then, guiding yourself towards better habits, better results.
You got it. And part of that coaching is simplifying your habits.
Right.
Reduce that friction.
Yeah.
The easier it is, the more likely you are to stick with it long term.
Work smarter, not harder. Right.
Does he have any specific ways to do that, to simplify?
He talks about automating things. Streamlining.
Okay.
Like if you're trying to eat healthier.
Yeah.
Maybe meal prep. Or have healthy snacks ready to go, so you're not tempted by the bad stuff.
Make the good choice the easy choice.
Exactly. Remove that decision fatigue. Now, there's another piece here. We touched on identity earlier.
But it's important to think about it in this context, too, of reflection and refining things.
Mm-hmm.
Our identities, they can help us, but they can also hold us back.
Interesting. How so?
Well, we get attached to a certain version of ourselves, right? The athlete, the artist.
Sure.
Those labels can be empowering, but they can also box you in if you hold on too tight.
You get stuck.
Yeah. And then it's hard to explore new things, evolve as a person.
So changing habits might mean changing how you see yourself, too.
Clear's big on that.
Mm-hmm.
Don't get too attached to any one identity. Stay open to growth, to change.
So like asking yourself, what would this new version of me do?
Exactly. It helps you challenge those old beliefs, step into something bigger.
It's powerful, letting go of those old stories, embracing new possibilities. We're always changing, right?
We are.
And our habits, they can reflect that.
So as you reflect on your habits, reflect on your identity too.
Yeah.
Is it still serving you? Does it match your values now, your goals?
And if not, maybe it's time for some adjustments.
Exactly. It's a reminder. This whole habit thing, it's not just about changing what you do.
It's about changing how you see yourself.
And the possibilities that are out there.
So wrapping up this Atomic Habits deep dive, a few things to remember. Building better habits, it's a journey, not a finish line.
It is. You're constantly experimenting, refining, adapting.
And don't get discouraged by setbacks.
They're going to happen.
It's part of it. Learn from them, adjust, keep going.
And even those tiny changes, if you do them consistently,
they have a huge impact over time.
That power of compounding. Trust the process.
And be kind to yourself along the way.
Celebrate the wins, learn from the flip-ups, and never stop exploring who you can become.
So well said. Clear says it best. Success is the product of daily habits, not once-in-a-lifetime transformations.
Yeah, a good one to remember.
We hope you enjoyed this Atomic Habits deep dive. Now it's time to take this knowledge, use it.
What one small change will you make today?
Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep building those atomic habits. They'll shape your future.